What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another Hunter's Guide to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In this video, I'm going to be bringing you another endgame build, this time for the Switch Axe. Now what is an endgame build? Well, it's a build that is constructed from some of the rarest armor, weaponry, decorations, and talismans in the game. They also feature Quirio's crafting, but it's not to the extent where the skills we get through Quirio's crafting are unobtainable. Now as always, if you find these builds helpful, interesting, or entertaining, please consider leaving a like on the video as well as subscribing to the channel, as I try to bring you a variety of builds for a variety of different playstyles. Now when it comes to the Switch Axe, it's a powerful weapon in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. It's in a very favourable position with strong DPS output and quality of life that make it enjoyable to use. Its shortcomings have also been alleviated as well thanks to the various Silkbind attacks it has available to it. And speaking of Silkbind attacks, the build I'm showing today is the Switch Axe Infinite Invincible Gambit build. This build is mainly all about wire bugs and being able to use them in quick succession to allow us to use the Invincible Gambit Silkbind attack over and over again so we are not interrupted when attacking a monster and we can constantly continue our assault. It's also coupled with DPS and quality of life skills to ensure our survivability on even the toughest of hunts. So for this build you'll need the following. First of all, you'll need the Risen Kushala Glare, you'll then need the Golden Lune Mail, Risen Kushala Grande, the Malzeno Coil, and the Risen Kushala Crus. As for your Petalace, go with either the Demon Petalace if you want damage, or the Absolute Petalace if you want something a little bit more balanced. And then for your talisman, you want to get a talisman that has as much attack boost on it as possible. I have attack boost at level 3 with a tier 2 decoration slot and a point in the Razor Sharp skill. As for your weapon, you want a powerful Switch Axe that has quite a few decoration slots available to it, so I've gone for the fine Kimura Battle Axe. With the Quirio's crafting for this weapon, I've got a Rampage slot upgrade as well as points in increasing our raw attack. As for the actual Rampage decoration, you want to go for the Switcher Jewel to give us the File Switch boost skill, which allows us to restore some of our Switch Axe gauge when we're switching between axe and sword mode, as well as giving those moves some extra damage, which is a great quality of life Rampage decoration for the Switch Axe. Now as for the decorations, you've got a fair few and some of them are optional. First of all, I've gone for a hard steadfast jewel to max out stun resistance. I've then gone for quick switch jewels to max out the rapid morph skill, tenderizer jewels to max out weakness exploit, a spirit bird core jewel for a point in the spirit bird core skill, bloodening jewel to max out blood right, jumping jewels for a few points in evade extender, critical jewels to max out critical boost, cornerstone jewels to max out defiance, destroyer jewel to max out part breaker, and then finally razor jewels to max out razor sharp. So if you've done what I've done here, you'll have a build with a raw attack of 398 with no element. You'll also have a decent amount of purple sharpness and 0% base affinity. This can easily be 50% when you take into account weakness exploit. You'll also have power files, and you have a strong defense of 846. That is strong against water and ice, but slightly weak to the other elements. As for the switch skills, this is where things get a little bit interesting. I'd recommend on one of your scrolls to use the Invincible Gambit move. This allows you to power forward, ignoring monster attacks and follow up with attacks of your own, but it doesn't shrug off damage altogether. This is why we've got some defensive skills on this build. On the other hand, on the blue scroll, I'd recommend going with the switch skills I usually use for the Switch Axe, which are the Element Burst Counter alongside the Soaring Wyvern Blade. Now what I would recommend is that when a monster is very active, aggressive, moving around a lot, then you rely on the Invincible Gambit moves to catch up with it and continue your assault. And when a monster is a little bit more slower and sluggish, switch over to the blue scroll with the Element Burst Counter and the Soaring Wyvern Blade for more damage output. So when it comes to the skills, first of all you have attack boost at level 5, although it will only be level 4 for some of you out there. Attack boost is a skill that increases the raw attack of a build and at level 4 or above grants us a percentage bonus to our attack. You'll then have Defiance at level 5, which is a skill that kicks in whenever a monster becomes enraged. When this happens, we'll be granted bonus defense, as well as immunity to monster roars, tremors, and wind effects. You'll then have Critical Boost at level 3, which is a skill that increases the damage of our critical attacks whenever they crit a monster, but only applies to the raw portion of an attack, not the elemental or ailment portion. You'll then have Weakness Exploit at level 3, which is a skill that whenever we're attacking monster weak points, we'll gain bonus affinity, up to 50% when Weakness Exploit is at level 3. You'll then have Razor Sharp at level 3. Razor Sharp is a skill that 50% of the time when we attack a monster, we'll lose no sharpness. This is our main sharpness management skill. You'll then have Divine Blessing at level 3, which is a skill that gives us a chance at taking reduced damage should we take a hit from a monster. This is one of our main survival skills. You'll then have Stun Resistance at level 3, which negates all stun effects on our hunter, and this is kind of required as performing the Invincible Gambit to power through certain attacks can leave you stunned when you're not using this skill. You'll then have Part Breaker at level 3, which is kind of an optional skill in all honesty, but is useful for this build. Part Breaker is a skill that basically allows us to break monster body parts more easily, and we've taken this mainly to work in unison with Bloodbright, which we'll talk about in a moment. You'll then have Wirebug Whisperer at level 3, which is a skill that reduces the cooldown on our Wirebugs as well as how long we can hold additional Wirebugs. This, alongside Wind Mantle, is one of the key skills that allows us to use our Silkbind attacks in the form of the Invincible Gambit over and over again. You'll then have Rapid Morph at level 3, which is a skill that increases the damage of our morphing attacks, so when we switch between sword and axe mode and vice versa. It also increases how quickly we can switch between the two modes as well. A great quality of life skill that I'd recommend for any switch axe user. You'll then have Bloodbright at level 3. Bloodbright is a personal favourite skill of mine, even though it may not be the most meta out there. Basically, whenever you're attacking a broken monster body part, a portion of the damage you dealt will be converted into health for yourself. So it's a way of healing yourself without having to sheathe your weapon. This is why we've taken Part Breaker, so we can break monster body parts a little bit more easily and more quickly, so we can take advantage of the Bloodbright skill. Anyway, you'll then have Burst at level 3, which is a skill formerly known as Chain Crit, that whenever you continuously attack a monster, you'll gain increased raw attack and elemental attack. You'll then have Wind Mantle at level 3, which is one of the essential skills for this build to work. Basically, using a Silkbind attack boosts your Wirebug gauge recovery. You can tell when this is active by your Wirebugs having a green outline around them. Afterwards, landing continuous attacks increases this effect, but should you sheathe your weapon, then you'll lose the effect and have to reapply it. So I should caution you that when you get knocked over or knocked down, don't always Wirebug to safety, get up naturally so you don't lose the Wind Mantle bonus. Anyway, you'll then have Evade Extender at level 2, a useful quality of life skill especially for the switch axe, as it increases the distance at which we evade and dodge, countering the slow mobility that the switch axe has. You'll then have Fortify at level 1, which is a useful skill that whenever we cart will come back with increased attack and defense. This can be applied twice during any one hunt. You'll then have Master Mounter at level 1, which is a byproduct of the Qurio crafting that improves our wyvern riding skills. You'll then have Counter Strike at level 1, which, should we be knocked back by a monster, will gain a temporary buff to our raw attack. And then finally you'll have Spirit Bird Call at level 1, which is a useful quality of life skill that randomly calls spirit birds to your hunter, eliminating the need to always go out of your way to get them. So those are all the skills for this Infinite Invincible Gambit switch axe build. Let's move on to the next section where we talk about the Qurio crafting. These are endgame builds, so they do feature Qurio crafting. Normally though, when it comes to the Qurio crafting augmentations, I try to get decoration increases, so extra decoration slots or upgrades to existing slots, rather than actually going for specific skills. These are a little bit more easily obtained and allow for more customization with your builds. So when it comes to the Infinite Invincible Gambit build, for the Risen Kushala Glare, I've got a tier 4 decoration slot upgrade. For the Golden Loom Mail, I've got a point in weakness exploit but a decrease in the counter strike skill. For the Risen Kushala Grande, I've got a point in attack boost. For the Malzeno Coil, I've got a tier 2 decoration slot upgrade, an additional tier 1 decoration slot, and a point in the Master Mounter skill. And then for the Risen Kushala Crust, I got a additional tier 1 decoration slot and a point in the Fortify skill. But every build out there, even the endgame builds, they all have various pros and cons, positives and negatives, things that make them shine, but in return, things you need to be aware of when you're using them. When it comes to the Infinite Invincible Gambit build, its biggest pro is the fact that you can pretty much assault a monster uninterrupted. Being able to use Invincible Gambit pretty much indefinitely over and over again means that you can assault a monster, power through its attacks, and with the defensive skills we have, not worry about taking too much damage and just continue our assault over and over again. And speaking of which, its other pro is the defensive skills that this build has. Divine Blessing, Defiance, Bloodbright, they all make hunts easier to survive, providing us damage reduction and health regeneration. And the final pro for this build is that this build can be used against pretty much any monster. This is thanks to us using an elementalist weapon. But of course there are cons. One of the biggest cons is that this build unfortunately is slightly lacking when it comes to offensive skills, but you should still be able to take down monsters in a decent amount of time thanks to not having to dodge attacks or back off from a monster. And the other con is, unfortunately, this is a decoration heavy build again, requiring some of the endgame decorations that you get late into your anomaly research level rank grind. But if you're looking for a more defensive build, a build that allows you to slug it out with a monster rather than having to accurately time your attacks, then I'd recommend this one. Being able to use Invincible Gambit over and over again means that you can just go toe to toe with a monster, and the survival skills that this build has means that you should be able to survive most attacks. There are a few exceptions of course when it comes to one-shot attacks, but For the most part, you can power through most attacks that a monster will throw at you. Like I said, once a monster becomes slow and sluggish, switch over from the Invincible Gambit spam to perform your sword combos for more damage. Do this and you'll have an enjoyable switch axe build in your hands, making it one of my personal favourites to be honest. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you another Hunter's Guide endgame build, this time for the switch axe in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.